board. They voted on the SLAC recommendations, and I'll kind of go through those. Folks that were voted to retain in their original location were I'm Not Your Purple Princeton Daughter, Lewis I, The Glass Castle, The Lovely Bone, 19 Minutes, Poet X, Soul, Speak, and Will Grayson. The board voted to retain but reclassify the upper high school type runner. The SLAC recommendation and board approval of titles to remove entirely from our collection were The Art of Racing in the Rain, Identical, Kingdom of the Curse, Kingdom of the Feared, 13 Reasons Why, Kendra, and Boy Toy. And then I did let them know that there were 2 of the titles that were considered at the last SLAC meeting that we moved to this meeting's agenda to discuss. Does anybody have any questions or comments about that board action?
Are folks back on the shelf now?
They are not. They are not back on the shelf. They're in the process of being appealed, and we're going through that process. So I'm glad you asked that. So they are being appealed, and the board will consider those and make a final decision on those titles at the next open meeting.
Does SB 13 require those to stay off the shelf during the appeal process?
It does not state that they have to stay off the shelves. There's a lot of information about the challenge.
So we have chosen to keep them off the shelf in the interim.
Yes, at this point.
That's our decision, not an SB 13
Correct.
decision.
Ours is in the SLAC or ours is in the board?
The district. That was yes.
Was that part of the conversation you had with the attorneys?
No.
I know you've been talking to him, so.
Actually, yes, it was. That was what he advised. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so I think we can start on our starting to consider book challenges, and with our goal to not be here for 4 hours this and I don't think that's going to happen. A shorter list and a smaller agenda. So let's start with the haters, which we discussed at the last meeting. We had at least one voting member choose to abstain from voting for that one, which meant that we were moving it for further consideration to this meeting. So the original vote for the haters, and the author is Jesse Andrews, was 3 voted to retain to the original location, 1 voted to retain but reclassify, 2 voted to remove, and 1 asked to abstain and review further. So whoever chose to read that book, if you have any additional
I'll start. I was the one who chose to abstain to read it.
Okay.
It was a very interesting read. I will say for my stance, definitely an interesting book. I thought that some of the points that were made, that there's no direct intercourse happening in there, at least very much description of that is very evident. Obviously, there's a lot of implied things. There's a lot of suggested things. I do think that it merits possibly enough of a discussion to move it to a different section or location. Personally, just mainly because of the overall acid trip at the end at the music barn. That place of Rumspringer, essentially. We got to run away and enjoy parts of life that maybe are not as wholesome.
Does anyone else have any comments on this book? I will give you just a couple of minutes if you want to go back into that folder and look at some of the notes that were taken. Because it's been a little bit.
I will also say, sorry to keep talking, I do think it complicates, or it talks about some very complicated issues that I do think that students will find, not every student will find, but they will find, encounter in their life at some point. Some that are pretty serious, some of them that are a little bit less serious, but they can all find a connection with. Issues with adoption is a big thing in it. Absentee parents, guardians, friendships huge, intimacy, peer pressure, self-discovery, identity, many more that are actually engaged in it and actually makes it pretty worthwhile for a student to be able to encounter those and be able to wrestle with those. So I do think that there's a lot there. And that was one of the things we were questioning last time is did it actually have to carry?
I mean,
Just a quick question, going back to the appeal. Do we know, is that process like a sort of never ending process, or is there a limit to appeals? How many times can they appeal?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the law does talk about that, and once the board makes a final decision, a vote cannot be challenged again for 2 years.
Okay, I just wondered, so we can hopefully keep them off the shelf, which.
I appreciate all of your points. I think you're right that it does represent some underrepresented populations. Yeah.
Thanks.
I did like to dive down into jazz. It was kind of cool.
Do you need to?
That's okay, I forgot she's busy. It's fine.
So am I ready to move on? Hey, if you will make sure you go into your ballot, for lack of and
Are those shared with us?
yes, I shared them with your email.
Perfect.
Sorry,
Yes.
I just. Google Drive.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm into the review.
Yes, that just, I did include everyone. That is only, of course, for the voting, the 7 voting SLAC members. Everyone else, ignore it.
I know.
Yes,
Here's
here.
Okay.
And I think you can get into your form.
Hey, the next book is the other one that we chose to hold off until to move to this meeting, and that is Me and Earl and the Dying Girl. The original vote for this was 4, said to remove, 2 retain but reclassified at Upper High School, and 1 chose to abstain and review further. Alana, I think it was you that chose that.
Yeah, so I did not, I was the only one that abstained, and I didn't put on my books for the list to read, so. I read the other 3, and yeah, I realized today that I did not read that. I'm having trouble getting into the form, sorry.
Oh, do you need me to share it a different way?
I'm not sure a different way to get into it besides my email, so let me see if I can figure out how to open my email on.
That part, but I don't know. This part. Because that's not the protocol I understood.
While you're working on that, I will say on this one, if there's nothing to add about the book, then I would suggest moving forward. It was a majority that voted to remove, so we can move forward with that recommendation. If everyone's okay with that, since we had just said if for whatever reason, if anyone abstains, we would move it. But it did have the majority voting to remove. were you able to get into it?
No, you didn't.
Oh, that's right.
I can catch up.
Okay. Okay. The next book on the list is Tricks by Abilene Hopkins. Talk a little bit about the history of this book. It was purchased at Cooper in 2012, and since then it's been checked out 19 times, with the last time being in September of 2025. A recent checkout. I'd like to move to the notes that were added for this title, and open up discussion about, for those who read it.
I'm only seeing my own notes. Am I missing more?
I didn't upload all of mine this time. I wrote them, so.
Yeah, that showed discussion.
Okay.
I thought this book is, it is raw and gritty. And not my preference, but some students like to read things that are kind of in this like dark underworld. I would be comfortable reclassifying it to just the juniors and seniors. Those are like 17 and 18-year-olds, almost adults. I think probably students younger than that who don't like this kind of, that kind of raw and gritty are not going to read it anyway because they would not choose it, select it for themselves. But I think if we put it in the junior, senior section, it would just, make sure it's only those almost adults who would be reading it.
I agree. I was really on the fence with this one.
On the fence between reclassifying or retaining or getting out.
Yeah, it's the only one that I really was like, oh, I'm not sure this is appropriately classified as YA. However, it was specifically mentioned by a young man at the school board meeting who was speaking from the point of view of victims, asking for it to be retained. And I think that's really worth considering. And so I went back in and read some more reviews from teens. And I also thought about, before we went to our current church, we, for many years, went to a church that would be known as like a recovery church, where the majority of the people in that church were in some sort of recovery program. And I mean, I personally have known people that have lived these stories, and those parts of their lives started when they were young like this. I feel like it's a bit much, like it's a lot in one book, and I think it would be better if it was split up into different books, but that would just be.
And that was part of my frustration.
It's just a lot.
From a literary standpoint, is I lost track of which characters are, it goes back and forth so quickly and it doesn't give a lot of backstory. It's a lot of dialogue. And I kind of lose track of which character we're on and what's happening with them from a literary standpoint, but.
But young readers are saying that they love the characters, they felt connected to them, and they found the dialogue realistic. I do not think it would be appropriate for middle school or even probably a lot of younger high school. So I do think reclassifying would be most appropriate. Because that would ensure that you've got 17 and 18-year-olds checking it out. Because it was pretty gritty. I tried to print an article and my printer was out of ink. But there was a really interesting interview with the author in which she also talks about how she interviewed lots of teens and she worked with vice police in the Las Vegas area when she wrote this book, and interviewed them about their experiences of teens who get into this kind of lifestyle, and interviewed some of those victims and survivors that she was connected to through the vice police.
And so I feel like she tried really hard to make this as realistic and sort of cautionary as possible. I also felt like it would be more cautionary for the parents to read. Like, don't kick your kids out and leave them on the street, you know? But hopefully teens would also, you know, find it cautionary. Because they don't, none of the bad things that happen in the book are glorified. It's definitely.
I did just upload Elisa's notes. I'm sorry, I went and scanned them and then I didn't upload them to the folder. So if you want to take a second, she has lots of notes on this one as well to look at those.
Yeah, I would vote to remove it. I think the problem is you have competing sets of needs. You have the kids who we do want to develop empathy for, who are in these horrible, almost like a horror movie situation. Then you have kids who are totally innocent, and my concern would be that the first, like, at a young age, when you're kind of setting your understanding of what sex is and what experiences you can expect, that this would be burdensome to someone who's not in that situation. I wish she could write it in a way that, you know, developed empathy, but didn't expose, I mean, there's a lot you can say through innuendo or not even innuendo without spelling out every act. As a parent, I feel like that's too much for a high school student, not to outlaw it, but like, just say you've got a kid who comes into the library and picks out a book at random. That could be really heavy, is my concern. So I would vote to remove it, even though I understand the issue and I think it's important to talk about.
I will say, I did also test the system. I've never blocked my own kids from any books in the library. So I just wanted to see how easy it was. And it was literally 2 clicks. It was so easy to say, block this title from, you know, and it had a drop down of each of my children that I'm connected to. And then, you know, I was under Benjamin and I typed in a title. In that title, it had 3 dots. You click on the 3 dots and it says, block this title from Benjamin. And then it no longer shows up as available to him. It like goes to gray. So I do think it's important to remember that it is easier than an email to keep your own children from reading what you don't want them to read. And so I hesitate to infringe on the rights of other students when we do have that option available.
I think that's a great tool, but I wouldn't know anything about this book if it weren't for this committee. And I think it's not unrealistic to think that parents are gonna go and personally sort through the catalog. That's why I'm thinking of someone at random. You know, if you're just pulling out a book, what are the odds that it's a book that's gonna enhance your education in a way, in a good way? So anyway, it's just competing sets of needs.
I have a hard time kind of with it's kind of like she's trying to reinvent a little bit. This is 5 years after she writes Crank, if I'm not mistaken. And it's like she's trying to reinvent the same wheel. I mean, I'm teaching Charles Dickens right now. There's multiple novels in his canon. Whereas you're talking about the poor in England, every story has a different twist. This doesn't. I mean, in fact, I thought that Trix is a little bit more gentle than Crank was. It's almost like she came. Oh, did you really? I mean, that's kind of interesting because I think she kind of comes back to I don't know if it's formulaic. I don't know if that's just the snob in me going, this is formulaic. Because it's kind of retelling
I think
the drug story again.
one thing I really struggled with in another reason that, I mean, I was really on the fence about it, is that almost all of the adults are cartoonishly bad.
Yes.
They're not, whereas some of the other, you know, books you see adults being really helpful or at least nuanced. And that's why I say it might be a better book for parents to read, to, you know, as a cautionary tale. I felt like it was just, it really didn't give the message that like that there are adults that will help. There were maybe two,
Yeah.
you know, kind of helpers.
Gives dystopia.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was another struggle with this one. But again, like 17, 18, I mean,
Anything else on this item?
I will say the amount of checkouts is higher than a lot of the other ones for this title, which is interesting
and pretty recent, I think.
and pretty recent.
And so that's the young man saying, you know, he wanted to speak for victims in keeping, that he named this title and sold, which we'd already discussed. And so I thought, well, if I'm thinking about a kid, you know, he said he was a recent graduate, but someone in that age range saying it meant something to me to have access to this, I really want to take that into consideration. Even though it's not my preference and I wouldn't necessarily recommend. I wouldn't recommend your books out, so ever writing. But that's me.
I think as a parent, coming at it not from just like, so I come from it from a teacher viewpoint, but also as a parent, I feel like if my child did just like grab a book off the shelf and got home and was like, this is weird, you know.
Well,
this
and you
is,
do get an email now,
you know,
everything they
oh
check
yes,
out.
I have 4 kids, so I'm getting all these emails.
Yes, you can
Your
also
kid
opt
checked out,
if
your
you
kid
want.
checked out.
Yeah.
Yes, let them babies respond.
Yeah, but you are gonna know if they check this book out.
And then I think that because of the home life my children have, they're gonna come to me and they're gonna say, Mom, this says this, and you know, what's that about, or what is that? Whereas a kid, and that's in a good home, with support and all that, we can say, hey, this does not align with our values, so I don't think it's made best. Sit back and pick something different, or if you really, really want to read this, how about we read it together? Kind of like what I did with 13 Reasons Why. If we have the kids that have no one at home, they're probably the ones who are victimized. So if we take that away, it's like they're already unfairly, life has already dealt them a bad hand. And then it's like where they could find comfort or camaraderie or something to let them know they're not trash, they're not the only person it's ever happened to. We just take that away from them. I understand wanting to protect both, but the good parents, the good families are already protected. And your child's gonna come to you and say, I don't understand, this isn't what we, you know, can you tell me? And a kid who doesn't have that is probably the one who's going to go to books for knowledge, for comfort, for that type of thing. It's not apples to apples I think our duty is to the less fortunate. I mean, just like, I don't know. I might not be wording it correctly, but what I'm trying to say is there's no one to stand up for the others, whereas we as good parents can monitor. We should have the relationship with our child where we can say, if this doesn't align with our values, we're not going to read it, but we're also not going to impose our.
And if I heard correctly though, the book isn't aligning values in a bad place here. The book is describing situations and it's all bad, right?
Right.
Yeah. Like,
It's not, that was glamorizing or glorifying.
yes.
No,
I didn't-
it's
We're
not like, hey, this is a good way to make money,
Yeah.
guys.
I didn't read the book.
It's like, this will ruin your life.
That one wasn't one that was assigned to me to read. But for those students who are in that situation, does it give them hope? Does it give them a way out? Or are they just groveling in everything that they're already surrounded in?
That's what I was kind of.
Versus like the glass castle, where it was there and it really brought up education as the way to pull yourself out of this. And you know, it has that light at the end of the tunnel, or are they just
being surrounded by more of what they're already in, and then they're just grumbling in it, and it doesn't give them a clear path
Yeah,
to
it's
make, to
mixed.
better themselves.
It's mixed. Some
Okay,
are in like a place of kind of needing some help at the end, like in some, it's more, you know, bleak. And I do think it's the beginning of a series, so I don't know. I'm not interested in really reading the rest of the series. So we'll never know in this book club after this. I also had a second reader, just a friend from my book club who has several kids in the district. And she said, noted many of the same things. I think it fairly accurately shows some of the pitfalls and dangers of living a life as a sex worker. The author is tough. They feel like teen melodramas. I could see restricting to older grade levels. And so that, but yeah, it's mixed. Some of them are, there's one that's in sort of like a ministry for like former teen prostitutes by the end of the book. And then there's one who's had an overdose, and that's how her parents like come to find where she is. And anyway, it's just kind of mixed because again, there are 5 main characters. It's a lot to keep up with. And I honestly don't even remember where everybody ended up.
okay,
So some yes and some no.
okay.
Okay, so we're talking about this from an adult perspective of what we've read and what we understand. Is there an opportunity for students to misunderstand? Is there an opportunity for students to misinterpret the opportunity for hope? Misguided. Does that make sense?
I'm not sure. Say what.
Okay, so you say that there's a blend of this book offers hope for students in this situation getting help. It was our adult perspective or your adult perspective that you read it from. Is there an opportunity for students to read this and misunderstand that?
No, I think I think the hopelessness is the people who are so far gone in this lifestyle. Those are the ones that are, it feels kind of hopeless. I think if you're checking it out at the school library, you're still in school. And these are characters who at some point in the book, they are out of school. They are trying to survive on the street. They are not, so I think if they're in, I mean, they start, some of them in like abusive homes, for example, or like trying to get out of poverty. I think it's much more likely that someone who's living a part of the beginning of the story, I don't think anybody who's checking this book out is living the end of the story, because the end of the story where it's bleak is so far gone. You're not checking books out in the school library. You're already, you're out of there. If you're living parts of the beginning of the story, I mean, I would think and hope that what you would see is like, oh, OnlyFans doesn't seem like a good idea. Like maybe it sounds like a quick buck, but no, this leads down that path. Or, maybe somebody offering you, a chance to make a quick buck in some of these ways.
Or even the gambling or the
Yes, the
addiction,
gambling,
how
yes.
those things can spiral out of control to where you no longer
Right.
can make your payments or
It shows the
have-
beginning before the spiral and how they get into it and get sucked in. Now, some of it is also very dated. Like the gambling sites felt like, well, that wouldn't be on his computer at home anymore. That would be an app. It is a little dated, but I still think it shows the, But apparently they're still checking it out. I was kind of surprised by the checkouts just because it feels old to me. But no, I don't think it would be misconstrued like, I feel hopeless that this is the only way I can end up. I don't feel like that. Because I don't think that would be a takeaway, even as a teen. And the teen reviews don't seem to have that as a takeaway. Read all the teen reviews.
have that book on my form. This is 11/17. Let's see.
Did you reshare a version?
No.
In the drive.
You're not finding
Voting is in email.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an email that was sent to us a little bit.
it? Just not shared it in the drive.
Let me just see. Oh, sorry. It was sent earlier this afternoon or?
Right
just
before
now?
us.
So, we've got you logged in with the library. How about I just go on the phone and vote?
That's what I'm doing. Yeah.
That's what I was gonna ask, doing it worked easier.
Hey, I'll just go on my phone and vote.
Do you want to do that?
easiest? That's the easiest thing to do. Most efficient. Although I don't see that email. I see the reminder email. Oh, never mind.
Did you find it?
No, I see right from that.
It's in, I think
It's
it's
in
in
that
the
same
same
chain,
thing as the
so
reminder
you might
email.
scroll all the way down.
And it's just a link.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Table.
Okay. Next one on the list is 99 Days by Katie Huntington. It was purchased in the Cooper Library in 2018. It has been checked out 8 times, and with the last checkout being in January of 2023.
And I also read it, but didn't upload a form just based on your email earlier.
That's okay. Yeah, I'm just discuss.
But I did read the ones that are on. It's a very benign story. I would say it's YA, not really classified. It's not. I really don't have a lot to add because it was very.
Yeah, it's very formulaic, love triangle, young adults. I will say what kind of sets this one apart from others, maybe that I may or may not have read, not that I'm really into young adult.
Claim it.
You've got a very flawed main character, and usually the main character is designed as innocent and pure. I mean, you think of Hallmark movies even, that bad things just tend to happen to them. You have this flawed character that's trying to figure out life. She's going to college soon. She's trying to figure out what she's going to do with her last 99 days. And she is in love with 2 guys that are brothers. And finds out that they're competing for her. It's not actually that they love her. They want to be better than their brother. And sexism is all throughout. You see that she is a victim of slut shaming, and the guys are not. And I think that really paints a picture that I think is often quite a reality in our world. You have bullying, you have that's pretty prevalent, but you find within her a sense of agency and self-identification that starts to happen. She rises above that. She starts to figure out who she is, and that she doesn't need these 2 boys that she was interested in at the very beginning. There's raw emotion tied into it, and I think that makes it somewhat worthwhile reading.
I agree. And it, like Alana said, it felt very benign. Okay, just-
I would like to see what was challenged.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, there were sex scenes in the book. I mean, there was one instance of sex and it wasn't even described
It's not on the page.
in the book at all. It's something that happened in the past, but it doesn't go into details or anything about any of that.
but it just.
It was annoying. I was like, how many more
It
days
wasn't
till this book is over?
I
It was an annoying book. And just, she was very much the victim from her mother exploiting her
That's a huge part of it.
through writing a novel about what happened to her, which then brought the shaming and, everything else. So I think she was very much a victim on all counts. But then she did
And she was also
stand up for
Yeah, She
herself.
also makes some poor choices.
She also
but-
makes some
Yeah, oh yeah.
I think there's redemption in the story for
Yeah.
her, for sure.
I will say, in the book clubs that I'm in, when you have an unlikable main character, those are the best discussions. When people come in and they're like, I couldn't stand this character, So I could imagine, kids passing this one around and talking about, who they liked, who they didn't, and. Yeah.
There's a moment of frustration when she chooses one of the guys again, you're like, no!
Yes.
Yeah.
But then I did like the way it ended with like, your life doesn't end at 18.
Yeah.
You get to go on and you get to reinvent yourself and you don't have to be defined by what happened in high school.
Mhm.
And I think that's a really good thing for them to read.
I mean,
Because it feels like the end of the world.
These relationships and you're pigeonholed in a certain way.
not to get too personal, but my sister, but other people, teenage girls, things happen in high school and middle school, and sometimes it's poor choices on their part, sometimes it's outside of their hands that things happen, and for them, often it's the end of the world. They don't see a way around it. And one thing I think that this story helps if somebody's reading it is there is a way out. There is that sense of hope when we have lacked in the previous one we talked about, that you can find agency and you don't have to be reliant upon these people who have attacked you and oppressed you your entire life, that you can become your own person.
Find yours.
This was the first one that I read, and so it's been a little while. So I'm looking at my notes out here about it from October 21. So I know that there is underage drinking, sex off-screen, bullying, and people using one another, but none of this is viewed or portrayed as positive, including the underage drinking. It's shown as like a part of the problems, that occur. It adds to the problems. And I think that is another thing they need to see. This is not just like you having fun, it's adding to,
The real life consequences of.
Compounding the issues.
Ready to move on? Okay. Next title is Suicide Notes from Beautiful Girls. It was purchased at Abilene High in 2015 and has been checked out 17 times. The last time being in February of 2025.
I feel important to say that there are going to be spoilers spoken about in this room, and so if you want to read this book, step away. Stop the recording if you're listening.
I should have put that in my review. I didn't like that one. Didn't.
There are several documents on this book that were uploaded.
I will say I was very much expecting suicide in the book, and the oddest thing was that there is no suicide. I was expecting something like The Virgin Suicides or a book like that, and so to ease our minds, there is no suicide in the book.
And I will say, this is not my favorite genre. I don't like mysteries, and I think that's because, like, I had an aunt who always passed down these Agatha Christie mysteries, and I read them just because I'm a reader, but I detested them. But she like had a box of them she got from a garage sale. So I'm not a mystery fan, but I did think the twist at the end. The book wasn't super impressive going along, but then at the end, it really just leaves you wondering what happened, because there's two very different ways you could read the ending. And one of them, the girl who realizes how bad all these other people are could join them, or she could have been fallen victim to them, fallen prey to them. It's very ambiguous, the ending, and I could see some great conversations coming just from the ending.
I thought she was just too lazy to make it make sense.
Well, that's what I was surprised about the nature of it, because I wasn't impressed by a lot of the writing up until, but I don't feel, it was very much along the lines, I could see high school kids liking this because of all the Pretty Little Liars and all those CW shows that the little girls watch. It's very much like that, just a lot of silly, I mean, not silly all the time, but silly girls making bad choices, then having to cover them up, and then friends either falling in with it or having to try to stand ground. And then when you start to stand ground, you don't realize how far they've already roped you in. So there was a mystery, and I feel it was very much similar to a lot of things that they're probably watching, like I said, along the lines of Pretty Little Liars and those shows. There is a lot of cursing. The one murder that takes place, the clip or the bit that was taken and put in the complaint about the book, it sounded very horrible. It dared to sound almost sexual, and there is not any sexual anything. The man is a diabetic, and they tie him up, and they do overdose him on insulin because they want it to look like he did it himself. But so there is a murder, but there's no violence. Like, you're not seeing blood, there's no guns, there's no that type of thing. I did say that I thought that scene was a little heavy because the man starts pleading for his life. So for me, that got a little bit like you know, I brought out feelings before him, even though he's kind of that person. But there was not graphic violence, I guess is what I'm trying to say. They do kill him, but it wasn't graphic.
So it's
Thriller? I think it's more mystery than thriller. I wasn't very
So I think it struggles to
I
understand.
wasn't very thrilled.
I think it struggles to understand what it is. So here's a quick 30-second synopsis. The spoilers. It starts out with a girl who has apparently committed suicide, and somebody who used to be her best friend is like, that's blown away by this, and it's clearly hurt, or that has happened, and starts looking into it, and it's like, oh no, she didn't commit suicide, she was murdered. And it's like, oh, this is a murder mystery. And so we start down that road, and then we find that she wasn't murdered or committed suicide. She is in fact alive and faked her own death, because we needed more plot twists. And
And she faked her death by using, like, the body of someone who
Out of the
yeah,
morgue.
out of the morgue,
Yeah.
they bribed someone at the
It
morgue.
is super untethered to reality.
Yeah, it is not realistic.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Untethered to reality.
It was
Yeah.
the dollar store version of Gone Girl. Like, to
Oh,
me, it
yeah,
was like
yeah.
that. Like, all these weird, like, you don't know what's happening. It was the teen version of Gone Girl.
so not as violent as Gone Girl.
Oh, not as violent as Gone Girl, no. But it was kind of the same thing. It's very
I
fun.
did, and I at first I was like, oh, this is okay, it's building, it's going somewhere, but then you get to the ending and it just feels like there's not any being answered in a satisfying way, and in fact, it raises more questions in a very frustrating way, I thought. And it's like, why did you take me through all of this other stuff and not lead it to anywhere redemptive or even conclusive? So as far as mysteries go, It is not what I would recommend. We have a lot of really great mysteries in the library. I wouldn't put this on that level with the others. And it does have a lot of things in it that are disturbing.
That's the word for me, is disturbing. This book disturbed me more than a lot of the others that I would have thought might have disturbed me. It took a very dark turn. The dark undertones is what bothered me more than anything else. And I did find, I mean, how many, there are 4 that have faked a suicide in order to escape a bad situation. No hope is given for any other alternative, way to get out of this bad situation. No one they could turn to, or some other alternative. I don't know, I found it very disturbing, and I may have been the only one, but I did recommend getting rid of it, just because I found it disturbed me personally, so I felt like it would be disturbing to kids.
I leaned that way as well. Whenever I read it, I thought the language was very strong, to a point of just not making a lot of sense of, and then just the deception, manipulation that's involved in it as you move forward without anything very redeeming at the end. Thought it really lacked literary value.
And there's
I
not
don't think
really
it adds
anything
anything
hopeful at the end. It's just these kids who have faked their own deaths and are kind of living off of it on their own are just continuing this way. And they think they have a great life like that.
So how do we get to the
Yeah.
insulin-induced murder from?
The main psychopathic character, I believe it's a false accusation against her stepfather.
That's the question at the end. It was,
It's implied that that was a false,
That does sound like.
it does, yeah, a false accusation. And then and then I thought the murder scene was disturbing. I thought it was a pretty, it's kind of weird because it's not as explicit
It's
as
not
some of the
explicit.
books, but some of the, it was upsetting. And I just think it's really badly written, and I don't understand why, if you're sending a kid to the school library, why they would get something that's badly written, that's disturbing, that has, I just don't, it's not like I think no one should ever be allowed to read it, but as far as the school promoting it, I feel like that's not the right venue, and, I feel like try to come up with like, what is my rationalization for saying, for voting a book in or out? And I keep coming back to food, and that if you had a starving person, you wouldn't like take a Dr. Pepper and Takis and be like, look, this is food. Look what I'm giving to you. This is good for you. You'd want to give them good food that would nourish them. And there's so many good books out there. I just don't understand why you would offer this as if it's something good to a young reader. That's my.
I felt the same way. I had a hard time like really justifying why I would feel strongly about removing it, but I feel you on that. Just like getting to that place, but that's where I landed.
it's been checked out, it was purchased in 2015, has been checked out 17 times at the last time in February.
Obviously, we can't necessarily speculate why it was chosen to be added in the first place. Was there certain awards, or was it like a pretty prominent young adult book that made it chosen in the first place?
No,
I think
there's,
so. I don't think it's been on
it
like
was on some,
award list.
no. It was on some book list, foreign book guy, just,
Speaking as a retired librarian, and I do like mysteries, so I would be drawn to mysteries.
Yeah.
And the synopsis, obviously, when you're ordering a large bunch of books, you can't read all of them. If there's some that are called to your attention, then you do read those to see whether you, in your judgment, they should be in the library or not. But, I could see choosing that book,
Based
not
on
knowing,
the review.
and it even starts out okay. But it takes, like I say, a very dark turn, in my opinion.
When did Gone Girl kind of come out? Around the same time that I'm wondering if maybe they saw it as a young adult version of a popular.
It may have even been billed that way.
style.
Yeah.
was like 2014, 15.
Yeah.
At the same time, older.
Which is the year that this book was purchased.
Prior to February of 2025, it was checked out once in 2022, and then before that, not until 2020. It was checked out mostly the first 2 or 3 years it was purchased.
And it was new.
Mhm.
I don't think it's one that, kids are gonna be recommending to their friends. I think, just because if you read through all that and you can't determine the ending, like, that's what upset me, is I didn't know. Did they kill her because she wouldn't go along with them? Did she join them? What happened? I feel like there were so many twists and turns to not know what happened.
And other than the main character who, you get it from her perspective, so she's in the dark most of the time and figuring it out, and you're figuring it out as she does, but she's the only character that's kind of well-rounded.
And horrified at what's going on.
Yes, and
Like
all
at the
the other
murder.
characters feel very one-dimensional.
Can you say what you recommended, or what you would recommend?
I would recommend, I would feel okay with having it in the junior, senior section. It also wouldn't hurt my feelings if we removed it.
I think what's interesting about the school checkout stats is unless it's checked out constantly and you have that huge call for it, you don't know how many people read the first 2 pages and put it back, you know? And so
That's true.
Unfortunately, it's the last 20 pages that are most disappointing. This one.
So maybe they put it back, you know,
To the end.
You've gotta get all the way.
And then regretted their choices.
Moving on. Okay. The next title is Crank. Is that what you have on your list?
Mhm.
Okay, I have something that looks like I might have deleted a line, but is Crank, and it was purchased both Abilene High and Cooper in 2017. Been checked out at Abilene High 16 times and Cooper 4 times. Last time at Abilene High was in February of 2024 and Cooper in May of 2021.
I will, again, it goes back, it's Hopkins. I was a person that, the last one, when I had Poet X as well, and I was talking about that I would teach Poet X, the poetry part of it, except for, a dozen of the poems. She's not a very good poet. The word that I kept coming back to me in this is it's raggedy, and I don't even know a better word for it. The poetry is not really good. There's a lot going on and not any redeemable conclusion. In fact, I gave the prompt, the AP prompt, a couple of days ago. Edith Wharton said, sometimes great literature just concludes. This doesn't. It's just, I mean, I don't know a better, raggedy, has a raggedy finish.
So, just so we're clear though, like, there's a lot of bad literature in our library.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not move all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say what he's getting at with the conclusion there is it's actually there's a series that's in it, and the way it kind of ends, you feel like you're getting to some sort of redemption, or it feels like maybe some of the good things are starting to happen to her, and then it hits suddenly that no, she's still in the same place.
Yeah.
Nothing's really changed, but there's more books.
But that's realistic, like having known people that were in addiction, it is a cycle of relapse, and I mean the ending was hard, but it was like, yeah, that is the people I've known.
I will say it never seems to promote any of this behavior. The entire time it's talking about it being a monster, it's ruining her life over and over again. I mean, it is literally watching somebody fall down a pit,
Yeah.
and it's tragic and hard to watch.
I have a couple of things I think are important and a couple of things that I was concerned about. The thing I'm most concerned about is that it is dated, 2010, I think. And so the book is a cautionary tale. It's definitely not glorifying drug use in any way and shows the horrible things that happened to her because of this addiction. But it is before the fentanyl crisis. And so while the book is cautioning you from the point of view of probably what we all grew up with and even, you know, our one generation before this one, that the danger is you try crank and you get addicted, or you try something and then you try something else and you get further and further into this lifestyle and you need more and more. And a bigger danger now is that you could die the very first time you try anything. And I mean, I don't think that's necessarily a reason to not have the book. I do wish we could put a content warning. I do wish that she had updated it. And maybe she has, and we just don't have an updated copy with a note to say, like, hey, this doesn't really present the current extreme danger of a drug supply that's saturated with fentanyl. So that really worries me if we're looking at it as a cautionary tale. But something that I thought was important in the book, and the reason that I would fight to keep it, especially since kids do seem to be checking it out, is because of the way that it portrays a drug facilitated sexual assault. And that being kind of an talked about, underreported, but very prevalent danger. Drug facilitated sexual assault is so common, and it shows in the book how it results in shame and underreporting because of that shame, because they feel like it's partially their fault because they were under the influence. And I think that scene alone really shows how important it is to keep your mind clear, you know, to keep you safe. And
In that vein, though, it would have to go to the top. Like, this would definitely have to be junior, senior
sure,
into that. into
sure,
that
I could see that,
category.
yeah.
Yeah.
I could see that.
I can see it even to have somebody who's mature enough to be able to think through some of this and really recognize the dangers there, but not be overwhelmed just by the darkness.
But again, I do think the character is 15.
Yeah.
And I do
Yeah.
know people who started down these roads when they were younger than juniors and seniors.
Yeah, I think the character is set at the younger group, and it is not outside, it is not unhinged from reality. And you know, it does provide a cautionary tale. And you know, she goes to visit her dad for 2 weeks and comes back addicted, and it's just a series of bad things after bad thing, all related to decisions made here that were poor. And
It starts with dad. I mean, that's the,
She puts it all back.
yeah.
If she hadn't gone on that visit, if she hadn't
Right.
existed, none of this would have ever happened.
One of the beautiful things that hasn't really been mentioned yet, as we look at the book, the sense of hope or redeeming value we find is, even though she is raped, she keeps the kid, she loves the kid. I mean, it still hints the fact that she's not willing to give up everything because she still has the monster, the addiction still plagues her. But that there is some sort of hope and life at least found here with the child.
She wants to be better for that baby.
Mhm.
But it's a struggle.
And part of the struggle is negated because there are other addictions. I mean, it's almost like it runs hand in step with, you know, the crank, the sex. You know, it's all, it follows one another, self-perpetuates almost.
Mental health disorders as well.
Yeah.
Violence.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I think the double-edged sword of this one is how easy it is to read. A lot of times when there's content that's mature, and it's well-written in a traditional verse, you kind of weed out kids that maybe are not quite as mature intellectual. They're not going to sit there and read through it. This one is a very easy read, which could be good if a mature struggling reader wanted to read it, but it also could be bad in the sense that a middle schooler could pick this up and burn through it very quickly because it's not difficult to read. Although the subject matter is heavy, you just read through it so quickly. So that's one of the things, a lot of times when there's books that we question and I see that there's so much literary merit, I also see that the literary merit washes out anyone who's just trying to read it to get their jollies. They're not gonna be able to sit through the bluest eyes for one tiny sex scene. This one, anyone could really read the whole thing. It's not gonna weed out.
But I don't feel like it's to use the language, appealing to the purity of interest.
No,
like
It's not
that's-
appealing.
No.
There's nothing appealing.
I don't
No,
think it's
it's-
good, but if you're immature and you can read it easily, that part is just kind of like.
And this isn't in the middle schools, right?
That's
So,
Yeah,
yeah, I would not put it in middle school.
Read the whole thing.
No, it's a brutal read.
What happened to
I can't imagine checking it out at that age and actually starting to read the next chapter and be like, oh yeah, what's gonna happen next? Because it's just gets worse and worse and worse. So I don't necessarily know if somebody's gonna be reading this to think exciting thoughts or how am I gonna be entertained by this? Because the entertainment value is not as much there.
My book club friend, second reader, mentions that it could be good in Abilene for steering kids away from meth being a more prevalent drug in this region. But again, I just mentioned the fentanyl because I wish we could just like put a little sticker and I'll write one.
Handwritten.
Don't do drugs at all, okay?
but I think that like it's still clear, like don't do drugs at all because just doing it the one time was enough. That it's like, oh, now I'm gonna do it. Like you're right. She could have died at any point of those.
Right.
But I don't think there's a well. It's okay to try. Like
Yeah.
that's not the message of the book.
It's not.
I'm ready to move on. Okay, next title is Like a Love Story, and it was purchased at Cooper in 2019 and has been checked out 3 times. The last time being in October of 2025, and it was purchased at Abilene High in 2021. It's been checked out there a total of 4 times, and the last time being in October of 2024.
I love this book so much. I wish that it had more checkouts. I thought it was just made me cry.
That's kind of the polar opposite of you. It was the hardest, literally, book to read. To force myself to read chapter by chapter, and then it was also too explicit, which is why I voted to remove it. But I was interested that several people said they loved it, and I was like, I struggled to make myself, now I have to read another chapter of it, which I haven't had that struggle. Some of it,
I felt the exact same way you do.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, I gotta say, it was, I did love it, but it was the most complicated. This one had me torn in so many different directions, and, I'm constantly worried about, the underrepresented, groups. And I do think this is a very large underrepresented group, especially where we are located. And I don't understand the culture that's prevalent in this growth and for that underrepresented group because it's not my background. And so constantly reminding myself I don't understand this culture, but that doesn't mean that it's bad. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's immoral. But wrestling that with what my own understanding is, and especially as a West Texas Christian boy, good old boy, as you might say, it's hard. This, of course, for those of you who didn't read it, is have a love triangle,
Yeah.
so to speak. There's two, there's one that's coming out of the closet, one that has been openly out of the closet for a while, and then there's a girl that is heterosexual who falls in love with the one that's coming out of the closet, only to find out later that he likes the other kid that's mentioned here. The really hard part about it as well, and a big cultural aspect that really I think is important, is it's set in the 80s, in the big 80s epidemic. And what I will say is the biggest proponent for this book, and this is one I kept going back to, this is when I decided I think that it should be kept in, is there's positive role models, gay positive role models for these kids. And from the kids that I've interacted with in today's day and age that are homosexual, they don't have very many of those. And not to say that that doesn't exist in the world, but in this particular world we're in, this community, they're a lot harder to find. And having that uncle and them being in a monogamous relationship that established faithfulness and loyalty to one another was beautiful. And then also having that positive role model that explains to them how they are supposed to function in society, which is different. Giving them practical advice that they don't get because people want to talk about it. And yeah, it's set in the 80s, but I think it still applies to today. And I think that's where the beauty of this story is yeah, it's way different from anything I'm comfortable with reading. But for that particular group, that can mean a world of difference. If I put myself in their shoes and they're reading this for the first time, they can understand that somebody gets them, that there are some positive people out there that can support them and love them and care for them and want the best for them. And that's what I put that.
I didn't read this one, but there is a lot of sex involved. Are they practicing safe sex?
Yes.
Okay, because that's just something else I'm like.
Plot point.
The main plot point is safe sex because of the AIDS crisis. Because of the AIDS crisis. For the wrong reason.
And I thought, well, with it being the AIDS crisis, it could go either way. It could be, yes, they were doing, or.
Yeah, no, a big
And-
part of it is
and part of-
consensual,
yeah,
safe, and, all of it in monogamous, which is.
Yeah, and
It does fade
One-
to black. The scenes they fade to black. They're not, it's not graphically
Yeah.
describing.
And one of the characters is so terrified because all he's heard is AIDS, 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 that he doesn't even want to kiss. Don't touch, the first time anything happens, it's clothes, through clothes and clothes, and then he's like,
And he's still
panic
scared.
showers,
He's still scared.
He's just so concerned about the possibility of it and everything that it's very hands off.
It's also an immigrant story. I think the way it portrays the fear and sort of the history, kind of an erased history, is really beautiful. And I mean, reading it, I just kept, you have these memories, and I can remember my first apartment with a roommate, and a friend that we had that was a young gay man came to our apartment late at night, and he had been beaten up. And I had that moment of this fear of his blood, but my roommate just immediately rushed in and grabbed him up and treated his wounds. And I just remember feeling so scared, and I could so identify with this young man in the book and the fear that he had and the way that it was just so pervasive, at that time, that even in, growing up, young at the time of this book, that even as a young adult in the early 2000s, I still had that sense of I'm scared, even though I knew I can't contract AIDS by getting him a washcloth, I don't have open wounds.
The fear was so deeply indoctrinated.
He was just a gay man. And that's the thing, is that the stigma was so strong and carried so strongly. And I think this portrays that so well. And it is at times devastating. I mean, I was crying pretty hard at one point, but then it's also so hopeful. And it shows, you know, there's an epilogue that was really beautiful, showing like some characters, you know, didn't make it, and some characters lived long enough to get treatment, and some characters, you know, lived long enough and were safe enough that they were able to get preventative medications. And I mean, I thought it was really important for underrepresented populations. And I mean, I finished it and immediately recommended it to 5 or 6 friends. And I would absolutely hand it to my kids. As freshmen, I mean, the sex is all very responsible. It's displaying clear consent language, talking about being ready, not pressuring each other, understanding risk and readiness, and it fades to black, which is entirely appropriate for teens. I thought it was beautiful.
The other thing that went through my mind is, you know, people that are going to be checking this out, students, the majority of my population is going to start reading this and they're going to feel uncomfortable when they have to read it, just because it's not their cultural background. But those who actually would read it and actually get some value from it, it could save lives. And I don't want to minimalize that in any capacity or even make it seem trivial, but I mean, studies are showing without good representation, good supports, kids are dying. And it's because they're not finding any sort of support, any kind of help, any kind of hope. And this is one of those books that can provide that. A group that's, I don't understand, but I want to support.
It does have the most viscerally bad scene of all the books, which is when, in one of the very first scenes, the teen does not, as an immigrant at a new school, he does not want to start school with braces, and so he rips his own braces off the night before school starts. And that was, of all of these books, I was like, that was the worst thing to hear. So warning about that.
Also promotes civil disobedience as opposed to violence. That's a big point throughout all of it as well. They really drive that home. Every single time it's like, why can't we do this? And it's like, because that's not how we do things.
I think that's a good point about having access for certain communities, because it's, like you said, high schoolers can choose their own books. We're not talking about books that are required reading. We're talking about their own selection. And they very often will bring a book back. They just didn't get into it. They just didn't like it that much. I changed my mind without finishing it. And that's great. You know, we want them to be able to be able to choose and select their own reading. And then we also have the additional layer of parents who can put a note on their child's account that they don't want them to read certain things. So, you know, I think there's little risk of, you know, this getting into the hands of someone who isn't ready for it, or their parent doesn't want them to read it. We put those kinds of barriers or those things in place to help that. And there's more of a risk of we take out things that some students really need, and we don't give access to the kids who may not otherwise have found a place where they belong.
I don't see anyone taking this book up off the shelf and thinking, yeah, I want to embody this, or I want to live this out, because it's hard. The life that they're showing, I mean, it's not going to cause them to be like, oh yeah. So there's not a sense of temptation for anyone outside of that. I think it's really just for those who need it. You're looking for
I do not disagree with what you all are saying at all. Just seeing, we didn't read it.
Yeah.
I read it as, I didn't want it to end up in someone's hands, because some of the things that were being talked about in the book are not necessarily talked about now. And I was concerned that someone would get this and bring those things up, like AIDS. And it's just like, I read it from I wanted to protect.
Mm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And not, I mean, I'm not offended by anything in the book. I totally get what you're saying about the whole part of it, but I work with middle school kids. I work with high school kids. I can totally see a kid getting this and using that, some of those things against
Oh, yeah.
a homosexual group. And that was my fear. This is a topic that has been, I don't want to say pushed aside or looked over, or maybe if I want to say this, I don't know if it's right. Laid dormant for some time. And are we bringing it back up?
Specifically the AIDS part of it.
Specifically, the AIDS part of it. You know,
The reason just ostracize someone who's already started.
yes. And that was, I couldn't get beyond that.
Mhm.
But I'm a 46-year-old woman.
Yeah.
And again, I don't think if you are someone who is going to engage in those homophobic activities, that you're gonna pick up this book and read it.
Yeah. I mean, you're gonna-
I mean,
I don't I didn't know anything about it. I hadn't read the review. It was just when I signed at the last minute, and I was shocked. I did not know this what it was going to be about at all. And so to me, the title's ambiguous enough that I'm sure more people have picked it up and checked it out, or more people have picked it up and read it. And I do appreciate the role model, absolutely. I think that is the only redeeming character I found in the book. Was that Nicole. But a couple people have said the sex scenes faded to black, and I'm like, I thought they were too explicit. I didn't read it that way. As opposed to some other books that had sex scenes that were completely off screen, that this was too much.
It's not
It's not
completely
off
off
screen.
screen, but it's not like,
I mean, I haven't read, the romance novels where, so maybe this is really.
It's a kingdom of the curse.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not
Yes.
It's nothing like it.
Something.
Well, and I also say too, I'm sorry to interrupt you, my other assigned book was Forever, Judy Blume. So I mean,
Same.
I mean, how much did that play a factor? And I read Bloom first and then went to this one.
I read
So
this
how
one
much-
first, so I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. But it's interesting, different viewpoints, different people, that's funny.
so aside from school libraries, just me as a reader, I've read over 100 books this year. This was one of my top 5. With like romance as the genre, when there are like open door scenes, I don't like things that are too open door unless it is adding to the character or the plot. If it contributes to the character or the plot, I can, go with it. If it's just like gratuitous, just there to be like titillating or whatever, I'm like boring, get back to because I'm really more of a character person. The characters being really layered are part of this. But I will say the only thing that doesn't quite fade to black is that he ejaculates. And it's an important part of the plot. Because that's where that fear comes in, that it's clothes on clothes, everybody remains fully clothed in that scene. And yet he's so scared that he feels, he needs to like immediately change and shower and all of that. It is a part of the AIDS story of the book and a part of showing, that part. It's not graphic in the description, but it does, have to say that in the conclusion, of this kind of making out scene, that this has happened, because it does contribute to the plot and the story and the character.
Well, and I would say that wasn't the only scene that I'm referencing of the scene where things were sexual on purpose. It's a whole thing about how do you lose your virginity and what the definition of that is a whole ongoing theme throughout the book as a gay relationship. And so that scene was too explicit in my book as well. I didn't think it was fade to black. I thought it was, this is exactly what's happening, and this is exactly how I felt afterwards, and had trouble walking afterwards, and all the things that make it way too graphic for me to want to.
And I haven't read this book, so I don't know, but I think when we're talking about things that are whatever is, sexually appropriate for a high schooler to read, I think it's just important that we keep in mind that we set the same standard, whether it's a heterosexual or a homosexual relationship.
Which is interesting that you and I both had forever as well, because it's,
Yeah. I mean, and I have stronger feelings about forever than I do about this one. It's not there yet. I know. The homosexual, heterosexual thing, that has nothing, well, that's not true. I want to say that has nothing to do with my decision. It does in that I support what you're saying as, hope for characters and role models. So it very much, I guess, does. But not in a negative sense. The sex was too much for me, and then I was too concerned about this being something that someone could get their hands on and make someone else's life miserable over something that happened in the 80s. That's the way I read it. And I didn't want to read it. I didn't want to finish it. Didn't want to.
I don't think bullies as a class are really like reading whole novels to get there.
Well, and
but one person who reads it is like loud,
Yeah, I just want to know the fascinating to like take away something that really represents.
Well, and if it was just
How old are the characters? They're seniors in high school.
they're about to graduate. That was my other hang up, is they're about to graduate.
They're about to graduate there. And in fact, they do graduate in the course of the novel. It is similar to Forever in one way that I thought was a positive, which was that I think that it's almost like a textbook in narrative form in some ways, explaining, you have like the older character explaining safe sex practices to someone who wouldn't have had that explained in their context. And that's the same thing with Forever. It's, it's an education disguised as a story. And I thought that was another positive, laying out, this is how you are safe, this is how you consent. And then, kind of showing that happening later, maybe they didn't need to, show it. But I really appreciated the explanation.
Modeling.
and not
Modeling,
I
modeling safety, modeling sense.
absolutely. But the modeling of the pressure of the one character who was scared, the one who was just now coming out, was constantly pressured by both the girl in the beginning and then the boy to have sex, and he was scared. And just the constant, finally when they were going off to college, it was like, well, I guess I need to do this with someone, you're here, kind of thing. But that just constant throughout pressure also really bothered me.
I felt like just to respond to the pressure part,
Yeah.
it felt more like that was not a pressure for instant gratification. It was more of a pressure for oneness and intimacy. That he was holding something from him, holding a part of him. And he wanted that full completion of the relationship. At the girl at the beginning, you could argue that was more pressure.
Yeah, I would
agree with that.
Yeah, that was.
But as far as the other boy, I can't remember his name.
I know, I was trying to remember.
His felt more like we've gone on this journey together. We've had this relationship. We committed to one another. The only step left, or the next step, is for us to be intimate. And that's where it felt more like his only pressure was not to say, hey, let's go, let's do this, like avoiding. It's more of a, all right, I've given all of myself to you. Are you going to give all of yourself to me?
Well, he didn't leave it. I'm just like, oh, so I can see.
Yeah, a cigarette
as
as
well, but it was just
This is hard, because there are so many different levels to this and so many complications with it. And we all each have our own cultural backgrounds and our own understandings and touches on so many things politically, theologically, socially. It's a hard book for us to talk about. I lost sleep over this book. But you already have a baby at home, so that's not great.
Did the two of you, did either of you read Forever?
I did.
I did not.
Oh, you did, yes ma'am, you referenced it on the phone.
I read it yesterday.
You read them both as well, what are yours?
I enjoyed this book. I just, to me, it seemed like being based in the 80s. It seems so outdated.
Sure.
And it would be more like if you were interested in the history of the gay movement and what has happened, it would be good. But personally, I think, if we're gonna keep it, it would be better for, like seniors, juniors and seniors. But since, that reflects the age that they are.
I will say almost every gay friend that I have is very interested in
Yeah.
history.
Yeah.
And
Okay, y'all ready to move on?
Oh, I think, did you read Forever first?
I don't.
Yeah.
I read them all. I was like,
Well, I'm wishing, and I wonder if it would have made an impact if I would
read one before the other. Yeah.
Next title is The Black Flamingo, and it was purchased at Abilene in 2020. It's been checked out only 2 times, and the last checkout being in February 2022.
This is a beautiful book, and I have no idea why it was challenged in the first place.
I think I wrote that on my.
Yes, it is a beautifully written novel in verse. And the only sex in the entire book is between 2 consenting adults or of age.
Explicitly
And it
consenting.
says,
It can't be more consenting.
There was a scene early on where he hooks up with someone in a cemetery that he doesn't even know. And
but he didn't.
but they don't
That
have
seems
They
sex.
don't have sex and he immediately regret. He's like,
Okay,
oh,
well,
this is
then
a
I
bad
guess-
idea.
I misunderstood that
Yeah.
because he
Yeah.
passed out, and I guess I assumed that.
He said, what could have happened?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a wake up call. He's like, I
Now, that
really
was
big
not a
trouble.
safe situation for me to put myself in. What could have been of that situation, what
Yeah,
could have
this could
happened.
have gone really wrong.
This could have, I could have
It's
been
a big
hurt,
wake-
I could
yeah.
have been.
And there's a lot of casual drug use that had no consequences whatsoever. I didn't think it was really very bad. I'm disagreeing with a lot of you. But there was no depth to it, there were no challenges, it was just basically him ruminating. And the coincidences, like, he had crushes on like 4 guys, and guess what, they all happened to be gay. He didn't know they would be, but they are. And his best friend from childhood, oh, she just happens to be gay. It's, when you're writing, I do a little bit of writing, coincidence, you can't justify that much coincidence and call it a good book, you just can't. So I don't think it's well written. I think it shows unsafe practices. So that's my.
I wrote one sexual encounter on here, and it's, I asked him, can I kiss you? And he says yes. I asked him, can I touch you? And he says yes. I asked him, will you use a condom? And he says yes. I asked him, will you stay the night? And he says yes.
And
then
he's not a teenager even at that
the
time.
next day, they are both consenting adults, college age, and that's it.
And to the drug usage, there is
It's marijuana.
occasional references to marijuana.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would even call it consistent, like,
Well, and I think in a place where it's legal,
In a-
right?
I believe so.
I think so.
Since it's based in the UK.
In the
It's
UK.
in
Yeah.
So it's not a,
Not even.
Illicit.
And I think it's mostly a story of identity.
Yes.
Of this person trying to find their place. First of all, being a mixed race person and not feeling like either cultural acceptance, just feeling lost, and they finally do find an identity, you know, in a group of people. But it's a mostly kind of an introspective, kind of a coming of age, forming an identity novel. Trying to find where he fits, right? All from a very young age.
Yeah, it moves through a lot of ages.
Yes,
yeah.
yes, from him wanting a Barbie instead of a Mutant Ninja Turtle, you know, as a child to ending up. And I was like, it's not a lifestyle or a situation that I can relate to myself. Thus I'm slightly uncomfortable, but I appreciated the restraint, I thought very restrained manner in which it was dealt with, and gentle manner in which a lot of these things were dealt with in the book.
and we talk about underrepresented audiences, like so many different levels of underrepresentation that are represented here.
Yeah, I thought it had a lot of retaining value and didn't meet our criteria for removal. Yeah.
I appreciated that it elevates poetry and performance art. I didn't think the poetry in the book, I didn't think that the writer was a great poet, but I liked what they say about how he sees, how he finds himself through poetry and performance art. I thought that was a neat, kind of take. And artsy kids.
What would be like a 1 or 2 sentence summary of this? Because I'm still pretty clueless as far as what's the.
So
What's the plot?
it's written from the perspective of a young mixed race individual who he's part Jamaican and Cypriot. Cypriot?
From
Cyprus.
From Cyprus, yes.
And we're growing up in England and figuring out that he's gay and what does that mean, and having a friend who is his best friend that then is she homophobic? Well, then she's not really. She turns out to be gay, and just different relationships, and just it's coming of age.
And it's kind of figuring out how much of myself and my vulnerabilities am I willing to show people, not knowing how they'll receive me.
And it tries out all the different clubs at college, it tries the people from Cyprus, is that a good fit, the African American, and this and that, and ends up finding his identity in the drag community. And using his poetry and spoken word to help express himself art.
And even that, it was an unexpected discovery of himself,
Yeah.
where he talks about, that's not something I'm interested in. And then he is, but not in necessarily the way that other people are. And it's this is who I am, and discovery of who am I really.
And part of, I think, why it ended up being the drag community was because that was a group that was willing to say, we don't care who you think you are or how other people perceive you, just be whatever you want here. Like, it can look like anything here. I wasn't really sure, maybe this shows my age, that he decided he was gay. I mean, he experimented with that, but it was like he was going through a lot of experimental stages, trying to figure out where he fit. And yes, he fit in drag, is where he decided he fit, but I wasn't convinced that that was necessarily.
Yeah, not everyone who does drag is gay.
Yeah.
So.
I thought it was carefully written for being a kind of controversial, not controversial, something that not everyone agrees with, or a lifestyle that not everyone agrees with. I thought it was carefully written and Some of it where you talk about the, this just so happens, a coincidence, there was a level of kind of simplicity to it that maybe doesn't belong in, like, that's kind of unrealistic to his story, but it's very carefully written, and I
would have enjoyed more if there'd been more challenges. I mean, or maybe one of the guys he had a crush with didn't reciprocate. Just, I'm straight and you're a weirdo. That would be, have him face a struggle. But, it was just easy.
It seemed like it
And
was
then
very,
self-fulfillment, so.
Well, I think he had, like there was the brother of the friend, and I think he felt, used and in that situation.
He was disappointed about that.
Yeah, it's been a little while since I read this one, so I'm trying to remember, but, and then there's a scene when his uncle, who was kind of like the only because it's also a poverty story. The only person that kind of helps him like with the logistics of like getting to college and like paying for things and stuff like that is taking him to college, and they're pulled over, and there's a conversation about race in that, and he, is kind of feeling, that struggle. But I agree, it's a little, I actually wanted to like it more. It had been on my list for a while, because I did feel like it just flew through a whole life pretty quickly, and I would have liked to dwell on some of the challenges a bit more. But, not everything has to be like totally devastating.
But at the end of the day, does it have harmful material? No. Does it have profane material? No.
It was less crude and vulgar than many of the books I read.
Oh. It's less crude and vulgar than most television shows, most kids' cartoon shows.
So back at the stall.
That's pretty rough.
moving on. Next title is Yolk.
Before I start this, I apologize, Lindsay, I let you know.
Yes.
I had, let you know, Eric, I have a conflict, I have to reach a concert. If I hit submit without, voting on the last two, it won't let me, so I guess just disregard my vote on the list?
Yes, I'll do that.
Can we take a quick break?
Yes.
There's,
Okay.
I can hit it.
Let's continue. We're almost finished. Next title on the list is Yolk, and it was purchased at Cooper in 2021. It's only been checked out 4 times, the last time being in November of 2022.
I didn't feel much about this book. It felt like what is that movie, Crazy Rich Asians, but like not. There was a little bit of that in there, and they kind of joked about that, but that's pretty much it. Definitely some cultural things that I'm not as used to, that I thought were really impactful and might be useful to some. But as far as overall complications, I don't know. I didn't feel like anything was really, there was not enough to really even be, like I read it and I was like, why am I reading this? It didn't feel like I learned anything or anything from it. Or was opposed to too much, but.
I learned I think the thing that I wasn't aware of is probably that Korean cultural dynamic as much as anything. I mean, it's so much. Here's one girl goes to her sister. They're not close. There's not even a sense of, here's my confidant in this. She is, one is facing every kind of eating disorder and gratuitous sex and drug use. And the other one is on Wall Street, but she's kind of a financier type business person who, oh, by the way, mom's got cancer. I'm like, it's kind of like you all. It's kind of like, oh, come on. There's too much there's too much action without ever exploring one thing. It's kind of like I was looking at a highlight reel almost. And I don't know what I call these highlights, but you understand what I'm saying. I struggle with the language of this. I just thought that the language was too much. There is, I mean, I don't know. I just kind of sat back and kind of thought, I'm not getting anywhere here. We're using language as shock value almost. And if that was the intent, it worked, because language is shocking. But I'm with you. It's kind of meh. Why am I reading this?
I loved it because of the relationship between the sisters.
I do, we don't act that way.
The love-hate seemed real to me.
And I just, one thing I noted is that at least one of the quote that would say, I want to get pregnant right now. The sister has cancer and they're getting ready to remove her uterus, so it's not sexual necessarily
Right, yeah.
in nature and,
It's a panic.
yeah, so just when you're reading through the quotes, I thought, it didn't meet my expectations of what I thought I would be reading. I don't think it's like easily accessible, kind of like you were saying before. It's not like you're gonna like stumble on it and, read all the way through it.
It's very literary. I agree. I loved it for the sister relationship, and I thought it was really good writing. I think it will appeal to mature readers most. I don't think a lot of the mature readers are going to get through it. I also read for a different book club, The One Woman with Your Wife, Between Two Kingdoms by Salika, I don't know how to say her last name.
Yep.
And she, it's a cancer memoir, cancer and travel memoir, but in the Zoom with the author in this book club, she talked about how when she was diagnosed with cancer, she was 20 years old. And so she was going through this 1 year too old to be in the pediatric ward. Mm-hmm. And then everybody else in the hospital was old. Mm-hmm. And so she said she clung to YA cancer stories, starting with The Fault in Our Stars. And she said those were so important to her, and she just like read them over and over because it was the way that she felt, really seen. And the cancer is not as much in this as I thought from, reading the blur. But the way that the sisters kind of come to understand each other and take care of each other, even when it seems like they hate each other. There's a beautiful passage that I wish my computer hadn't died, where they kind of remember back to their childhood, and there's a moment when the little sister, and the whole thing is told from the point of view of the little sister, but the one with cancer is the big sister. She, as a young child, has like broken out the window of their house and is like crawling out on like this ledge. And it's very dangerous, and they're like looking for her in the house. They don't know where she is, and she's this, young child. And I had a child that was always trying to die like this as well. And so they get her, and they scoop her up, and the sister, the older sister, takes this like China doll that she has, throws it off the roof of the house, and it smashes everywhere. And she takes her little sister downstairs by the hand, and she shows her like, this is what would happen. This would be you. And, kind of like scares her straight. And she's seeing this kind of crazy story. But then later, their mother retells the story. And she says, like, that doll was the most precious thing that she had.
and she didn't blink when she threw it, because actually you know, she doesn't say it like this, but what she learns is like, I was the most precious thing she had. And so you kind of start to see through some of these stories how they really do love each other, and I thought it was beautiful and complex, and definitely the pitfalls of some of the poor decisions of the younger sister. She talks about the kind of immigrant perfectionism, the first generation perfectionism that we've seen in some of the other titles, where in the sister, it manifested as like perfection and achievement. You know, she goes to, you know, the best college, and I think she goes to Columbia, and she, you know, becomes like a venture capitalist, and she has all this money, and she has this nice apartment. And then the little sister, it manifests in like, if I can't get it right the first time, I'm not even gonna try, and a lot of like self-destructive, you know, behavior. And then the eating disorder, I was worried about the eating disorder part of it, and, you know, always concerned about how kids read that and if it's gonna be like instructive for them, and I thought it was handled very responsibly.
I wish they would have spent more time on the redeemable sister. I thought the younger sister was such a train wreck, and we continue to focus there, which to me becomes kind of formulaic to YA novels sometimes.
Yeah.
And I wish that we would spend more time to the redemptive side of this, because the sister struggle is palpable. I mean, and we kind of like, you get there and you kind of just like brush it and then go back. I'm like, address it. I mean, I this sounds really weird, but I could have handled the language from the sister with cancer easier than I handled it from the younger sister who just didn't seem to ever get her way. To me, that's where I was kind of like, come on, let's pick this up a little. But not have, I mean, I have a sister. Like I said, I don't have a sister-sister relationship. I do think the dynamic of that, and I do think that what Choi puts together, the sister-sister dynamic, and the mother, and the perfectionism expected of the Asian family. I do think it hits a niche of people. I do think that, you know, facing be it illness, be it being a mental illness, and eating disorder, whatever, I think that it hits a lot of different things. It hits like fireworks hit. It doesn't hit in flow. I'm being way too critical of this, but it doesn't hit in the flow of the story. It hits like talking point. That's what I got in that. Almost sketch-like. Please, somebody say something.
You finished it out?
So is it just the overuse of the F word that was questionable in this, or?
For my college art student.
There was a lot of language, F word especially, but
Because I didn't read this one, so I was trying to.
there's a little obsession with sex and intimacy. Like on the questions, I put some on a lot of it, so.
It is, I mean, it seems like adults. that's
Yeah.
in there. So I'm saying it could be more appropriate for
And I also feel like the younger kids are really not gonna get through it. Like, it's very literary, it's pretty mature. I mean, the writing is pretty mature. Yeah.
What rate left? What's that? Check out.
Mine's 2022. But two of them.
I do wonder if the Korean culture craze will cause more to do that.
Okay, cool. It's reaching us in kindergarten too. That's all they want to hear. They don't want to hear any other music except
I
K-pop.
know we sold so many Tricks bookmarks at the book fair.
Sorry.
I took this Sharpie at the cash register and write your name on the back of it
Yes.
before you leave, because every kid has the
Buy the same books, sold out the posters.
Anything else on this book? Okay. Last title is Forever by Judy Bloom. It was purchased at Cooper in 2019. It's been checked out twice, last time being in May of 2001.
When I read the book, at the very end, there were notes from the author, I don't know if y'all got that, who said, when she wrote this book in 1975,
Like
her,
yesterday.
yeah, her 14-year-old daughter said, "Mom, every book I read about girls who have sex, something horrible happens to them. They have an abortion and die from complications, or they get an STD and they're scarred forever, or, you know, or all these bad things. Can't you just write a book about a girl who has sex and there aren't bad consequences?" And so Judy Bloom did that, and it was terrible.
This
It
is
was
the book
awful.
that broke my heart. Of all
Yes.
the things we've read, this is the one that
It
broke
was
my
just
heart.
awful.
And it broke my heart because I loved Judy Bloom when I was in 4th or 5th and then on. I mean, I loved everything. I thought she was the greatest author. And I still remember reading her books and having them. And then I read this as an adult and I was like, was her writing always this horrible? Was her character development always non-existent? And so it broke my heart because the writing was terrible. And then the sex was just over. Like I've never, I like horror, that's my genre. And there's not a lot of sex in horror, there's just lots of murder. And but so this, I was just like, I've never read a book with so much sex in it, ever. And so I was floored. I mean, I'm a book lover. I am never one to say, well, there's no redeeming quality in that. But I couldn't find one in this one. I also did not like, in her little foreword, she put something about like 2 ways to contact Planned Parenthood. And I wish you, and I'm not saying Planned Parenthood is bad. I'm saying in my religious views, I'm not a huge fan. But if she had simply put, feel free to contact like a trusted adult, a loved one, a friend, a mother of a friend, or Planned Parenthood. But it was just like straight to, here's 2 ways to contact Planned Parenthood. Almost like bypass everybody in your life that could give you guidance or wisdom and call Planned Parenthood. So that really, I think, was all the straw that just like broke the camel's back. I didn't see anything redeeming in it. And I kind of found that, like I said, because I'm big on my daughters and I talking about everything, it never mentioned like, ask your mom, or it's just call Planned Parenthood. So I didn't like it. And I didn't see the quality that would keep it in our.
Oh, I thought there was very much a undertone of if you would just listen to your mom and dad.
Oh, yeah.
That was the only good thing that I could take from the read. Just listen to your mom and dad.
Which is, I'm very grateful, but at the same time, because I saw like opposite of Trix, the adults were like so good at talking to her. And, you know, I mean, she is a senior in high school and she thinks she knows everything. And they give such good advice. And I like that she found a way to listen to her grandmother and keep herself safe in that way. I hated the boyfriend. I thought he was such a turd, and I wish that she could have seen it. And I think her parents clearly saw it, and they just kept so gently pushing, like, hey, you know, we're not saying, you know, that there's anything wrong with Michael, but you know, maybe you need some time apart. And sure enough, when they had time apart, she was like, oh, maybe I'm not so in love with him. And I think when you see Tim start writing letters, you see how he lacks all depth, you know, compared to her friend. I loved the friend, but it was the parents and the grandparents, the school counselor helping her with her college decision. I did think it was interesting that a high school senior needed her parents' permission to apply to another school.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I didn't know that about 1974.
It's odd that like grandma mails her all that great information and she does read it. But then she's right there in New York with grandma and doesn't mention, hey, I got this appointment. Like, thank you for being a confidant and would you drive me or would you come? I almost felt that underlined the good of what grandma had done.
I feel like it's realistic because, and this is, so I read a bunch of teen and parent reviews on Common Sense Media. I don't know if you ever, that's where I check like movies and stuff like that before I take my kids. And they do books as well. And teen reviewers say it helps them feel informed without shame. And I think, you know, the way that her, like when she does ask or answer questions, or when the parents and grandparents say like, well, what did you think about that article that I gave you? I loved the article also, the 4 things, you know, and they were like in bold in the book, the 4 questions, which my computer died, but she says like, well, I thought it was interesting, not personally or anything, this has nothing to do with me. Like she doesn't want to admit to her parents and grandparents that this is the journey she's on, even though it is perfectly normal for an 18-year-old girl to be like wrestling with these exact things. And so I think they're being as helpful as they can, but it's going to be hard for her to admit this. So I liked, someone said, a parent reviewer on Common Sense called it a textbook disguised as teen fiction. And I would agree because it feels very like, here's what it's going to be like if you go to the gynecologist. And I'll tell you, you know, somebody close to me told me that their very first experience at the gynecologist, they went when they were getting married at the age of 17. And so their mother said, you know, you need to go to the gynecologist and get checked out and, you know, get birth control. And her gynecologist did something very inappropriate in that appointment. And she didn't realize that until years later because it was her first experience. And so I loved seeing this, and the way that she just describes the appointment and everything that happens and what's, you know, within the realm of normalcy. I do that every year on my Instagram account when I get a mammogram. I just say like, you know, come with me to get a mammogram, and I explain like everything that happens and what it felt like, and you know, here's what to expect, here's the door you go in at Hendrick. And I have had a half dozen friends say, I got my mammogram because you made me feel more comfortable, you know, doing that. And I was thinking about that because I have a mammogram in a couple of days. And I was thinking that's the exact same thing when she describes that appointment, and you know, when the doctor's saying this is a speculum, these are the stirrups, and you know what all of that feels like. And it's the same thing I think with the sex scenes. I do think it's more appropriate to older kids. The characters are seniors, you know, and then recent graduates in the book. I do think she kind of realizes in the end, like, oh, maybe I should have listened to my parents, but I'll never tell them that. Because her parents were right.
So I don't disagree with anything that you're saying. My concern is it's Judy Blume, and we're talking about 18-year-olds, second semester, senior year in high school. And if you've got even a junior in high school that needs to go check out a book to do a book report or something, they're going to have those memories of what Anita's talking about of Judy Blume. And if they know nothing about the book, they're going to grab the book. And the sex was just too explicit for me to have a junior in high school read it, especially when the characters are 18 years, second semester of senior year, accessing it from our school library. And then I even took the vantage point of, is this something that if a junior in high school read it that's in AP language, is this something that they could use on the AP exam to show that, you know, they're well read and
Well, it's not like literary.
and no, it's just not. minus the sex stuff, I enjoyed the storyline, and I was rooting for those parents. I mean, I was so glad they were arrested, so glad they were full circle. But the sex was just too much for me.
What was there a banquet table?
No,
I can kind of see why going from this book to that other one, that it could be a little overwhelming.
Yeah.
well, I mean, I'm talking first 2 or 3 pages into the other one. I'm just like, are you kidding me?
Not this one.
So I'm gonna share something with you all, and if it leaves this room, I'm be upset. I,
This is public.
oh,
Yeah, maybe don't share.
I'm a hopeless romantic, okay? I know I look rough and tough, but I'm a hopeless romantic. I love a good romance, all right? But man, the 2 I picked this week.
I can send you some good romance, Rex.
I need a break. I think I'm gonna jump into the murder.
Join me for, no, I've got some recommendations. Join me in the book.
You want to go to fantasy, I got you, fantasy sci-fi.
I can't do fantasy.
Brandon Sanderson.
I can't. Can't.
And then just one more note, aside from the sex, which was kind of got me, I also did not like the way the one homosexual character was treated, because it was like the friend's like, oh, I can fix him. If I just have sex with him, he won't be gay. And then the
Is it ever determined that he is gay?
No, I don't
Never
know.
said.
it's ambiguous, but then he is so tormented. He says he's going to commit suicide and no one listens. Then he attempts suicide, and then he just gets locked up in an asylum and everyone forgets about him. Like, I did not like the way the one gay character was treated on top of all the sex. I just felt like that was also,
I wanted to see
Did not
him
make
in a good place at the end, and they're not just saying
they
it.
just left him locked away. So.
Y'all will finish up your voting. You'll submit those. I can easily review the results here. It takes me a little bit of time to say who voted for what, and that'll be in the meeting notes. But it looks like all 7 are submitted, so we can talk about where we landed on that.
And Luana said to, what was
Disregard her last.
Yes.
her last 2?
Yes.
She called him out loud, I know.
That's okay. You can leave it. Yeah, I'll have it.
Lindsay, I did want to say, out of notice, I was converting mine to PDFs and then re-uploading, so if you saw that it took a minute, I don't know if you saw that, but I
Well, I was
converted it
like,
to
I don't
PDF.
understand what that message is. But okay,
Yeah, I
that
converted it
makes
to
sense.
PDF, so that,
That makes sense.
that's what I meant to do initially.
Okay, so
Oh, I wanted to ask a question about the odd order catalog. I don't know how often you submit new stuff, but, I think okay, I don't know how many people saw this, but it was just such a bright spot in the week that, Shannon Hale and Leywin Fan have dedicated their newest book to Abilene. And, I don't think it was on that order form. And I think maybe, I don't know if we can request for something to be added or looked at, but I think it would be really special for the libraries to have, that book, because it is dedicated to, I think it says to Abilene, the storybook capital of America.
The upcoming list.
Okay, it's on the end, okay. I just thought that was so sweet.
yeah, and we'll talk about timelines for approved lists in just a second. Okay, so the first book that we discussed was The Haters, and looks like we had the overall vote is to retain but move to upper level. Me, Earl, and the Dying Earl vote is to remove. Tricks vote is to remove. 99 days, vote is to retain in its original location and collection. Suicide notes from beautiful girls, the vote is to remove. Crank, the vote is to retain and move to older high school. Like a Love Story, the vote is to retain in the original location. Black Flamingo, retain in original location. Yolk. So I have to consider it one. Yolk, we need to discuss. It is a tie because I'm removing Alana's vote to retain in original location and retain to older levels.
So why not just put it in older levels? I mean,
Yeah, that's fine.
could we do like a?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
can discuss
I
that.
gotta switch my vote to that, it's fine, I was on the edge anyways.
Okay,
Just a little older.
okay, and then the last one, forever, the vote was to remove. Again, I'll put the specifics of the voting, it just takes a minute because of these forms to get to that, and then we need to.
What was the?
So, I'm sorry.
What was the name?
Restrict to older grades.
Restrict to older grades. Okay. And then y'all is now retained to older grades.
I just want to thank y'all for all the time that you have volunteered and spent working on this. When the school board first approved or to have a SLAC, decided to have a SLAC, I was not excited because I felt like it's just going to slow down the process of getting books to our students and undermines our professionalism. But I do feel really confident that everyone here has just done a really good job with it, and I really appreciate that. That layer it gives the librarians of like another voice that is backing up, so it's not just on us. But also, I really appreciate that when people in here disagree, these discussions have been so respectful and nuanced and thoughtful, and we do not hear that very often, the way these discussions sometimes get played out on Facebook and other places. And so thank you all for your time and commitment and for the way that you've gone about this.
Next meeting, I would like to put it on the calendar for January 26th. That would give us an opportunity for our librarians. They have started looking at future purchases or an approval list and adding books there. That would put us on a timeline to be able to go to the board with that recommendation to the March 5th board meeting. And we will, with the plan to post those lists publicly for comment and review as soon as we get back in January. So everybody is.
That would be at 4:30.
Yeah, unless y'all need us to move these to a different time. 4:30, yes, on the same, I think that's a Monday.
It is.
At 4:30.
Yeah, at Stafford, we are starting our after-school enrichment clubs, and they go until 4:30. And the clubs I teach will be on Mondays and Wednesdays, so parents are supposed to pick up right at 4:30.
Sure.
But more than likely, we've got 4:40, 4:45, then it's up to get here, so I would have to be here closer to 5. I don't know how that's gonna work, is that?
That's fine, yes, that's okay.
And the last meeting was scheduled on the same day as the health advisory committee meeting, which I'm on that committee. So I don't know when the next chat meeting is, but if the district has that set, I don't know. Since I wasn't at the last meeting because I was here.
Let me see
Those are usually at 6 p.m., so it may not matter if we don't have a million books to discuss.
I can just write it on and see if that next meeting is soon.
And she's doing that if you're looking for the best part of the last board meeting, go listen to a fifth grader read from the Christmas
Yeah.
kitty corn book to the board. It was,
And that's the one that is dedicated to Abilene.
oh yeah?
Yeah, that's the book.
Wow, that's delightful.
They should have let her have more time. I don't think anybody would if it was.
He was the only one he apologized to. He's like, "Yeah, I'm so sorry." It was adorable.
The next Shack meeting is on February 23rd.
Sure.
Okay, we don't have anything else? Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
So I'll see you